So I'm curious about Python. I did not realize that you'd already learned some Python at a like summer camp. Is that what your parents said?
Sort of. I'm part of this course called Juni Learning, and I'm learning Python there. But I'm learning it more in a sense of making games and not like, I guess you could call it. I mean, the things that we're doing with on Pi 4E.
Got it. So actually, I'm very interested in the similarities and differences between Python for everybody and what you're doing. So first, how is Python for everybody different from what you were already doing?
Well, what's different is that I did start at the very beginning again, just as a good review. Um, and I mean, I'm gonna be using the command prompt on my computer, and with Junie, I haven't done that yet. It's just on the editor.
Hmm.
And I think I will be learning new things on Pi 4E because, as I just said on Junie, I'm more focused on creating games, I guess.
Hmm. How many
Uh,
lessons into Py3 are you?
I'm on number three because there are multiple videos and quizzes in each lesson.
Got
But
it.
yeah, I'm on number three of I don't know how many.
Got it.
Um, but yeah.
Okay, so I looked at the first two videos of lesson two. Installing it, I skipped lesson one because it was just installing Python.
Mhm.
But so I have a sense for this guy. What do you think of this guy's videos, the Python free guy's videos? Helpful, not helpful? What are they like?
I think it's very helpful. I haven't really watched anything like it before. I think his teaching style is very effective toward me. And I'm enjoying it.
Got it. And in what way have you said you've never seen anything like it? How is it different from things you've seen before?
Well, one, usually I'm in person and not just watching assigned videos,
Yeah.
coding anyways. And he's using these, I don't like these charts, whereas usually when I'm learning the my games, my teacher explains to me with annotation because we use Zoom like we are now.
Yeah. Got it.
And
And then lesson three is when get into coding in Python for everybody. Are the first coding lessons in lesson three pretty easy for you?
I'd say most of them, but there was one that it took us a while, or maybe like a day and a half to figure out just with the time we had.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it was nice because it stretched my brain because I knew I already know some things, and
Hmm.
I tried to put those into the answer, and it didn't work, and then it worked. It was
Got it.
fun.
And you say us. Who is the us that was working on it together?
My class, my teacher and I.
Are you referring to Zwolake?
Yes,
Got
I
it.
do not want to mispronounce his name.
Okay, no problem. There were other students. I know there was Colette. Isn't Colette your age?
Yes, I think.
Did you and
Close to
Colette work together at all?
Yes, we did.
Would you
She
say
wasn't she wasn't there Friday,
got it?
but so she didn't get to see the answer.
Would you say
Uh,
she's about the same level that you were at in Python?
I think so because the things that I'm learning on Pi 4E is different, and I'm learning newer things.
Got it. And so tell me about the hard problem. What was the hard problem and how did you figure it out?
We had to make a program, a really small program that multiplied two variables into another one. And I guess it was just the placing of things that we didn't understand.
Hmm.
And so once we tried a few things,
Hmm.
we kind of got an idea of how we could solve it.
Hmm.
And then we did it.
Got it. And then was the concept of a variable in an equation new for you, or you'd already seen variables in equations?
I had already seen that type of stuff.
Do you know where?
Yeah.
Was it in math or in your other Python class or somewhere else?
It was in my other Python class because I do have to use that sometimes.
Got it. No, what's
Yes, I just
interesting is that often students don't get to variables in mathematics until they get to algebra. which is usually later. And I've often thought that programming is a better way to learn about variables because you can see it. I assume that once you solved your program, you plugged some numbers in it and saw it work.
Yes.
How
Yes.
many digits did it multiply? Were these just single digits or more than one digit?
It was more than one digit. Um, 35 times 2.75, I think.
Got it. And then did you check it out on a calculator or did you do it by hand? How did you know it got the right answer?
There was a an example of the desired output you needed to get in order, or yeah, you needed to get, and then you just had to match your output to theirs.
But I would expect you probably tried some different things that were not part of the regular of the examples. Did you guys try some other numbers?
No, we didn't.
Do you see why I would think you would want to try other numbers?
Yes, I
Um,
think so.
so with respect to how would you describe programming to somebody else? So suppose you somebody you didn't know who had never done any program at all said, "Hey Alana, I hear you're learning to program in Python. What are you doing?" How would you explain it to them?
Well, I think I would say that all we're doing is just making a series of instructions and telling it to the computer, but in their language, so
Mhm.
that the computer can understand it.
Do you think that I don't know, average kid on the playground would understood what you meant by that?
Well, if that average kid could program, possibly.
That's cheating, of course. Suppose they'd never done anything like it at all. Um,
Um, I think it's pretty simple in that way to understand. You're
mhm,
telling the computer what to do, but you have to make sure that they understand.
mhm. Do you know what I mean by if I say computer syntax? Do you know what I mean?
I think so.
How about computer logic or the logic of a program?
As in the word placement or the code placement or
Well, this
something
is what I'm
else.
getting at. I think of two aspects that can be challenging. One is the logical flow of a program, and then the other is the syntax of Python in particular. And do you know what I mean by that distinction, the kind of overall logical flow of the program versus the Python syntax?
I think I know what you mean.
You want to give me your version to explain the two?
Like the order of which the code goes, maybe just how you write it.
Are you saying that's the first one?
The logic.
In which case, what would the syntax be? What would I mean by
The
Python
syntax.
syntax?
I think what you mean by Python syntax is like the actual code and the text and the case sensitivity.
Excellent. No, that's exactly right. And I would say often when people are beginning to learn to code, you kind of struggle with the syntax because you do, as the guy said, computers are stupid and very literal, and so you do need to learn how exactly Python needs to be expressed. You say it's right down to case sensitivity and where brackets go and things like that. Um, Whereas the logical flow, right, that's the kind of overall um, sequence, how you design the sequence of instructions. Would you say that when you were working on that multiplying two variables, you started by thinking in your head kind of how to make that happen?
I think so, yes. I did that.
What was your kind of conceptual strategy? How did you think about multiplying two variables?
Well, I knew that because there was only one variable given, so I knew that first I had to make the other variable, make it so that it has input or needs input, so the person has to enter something. And then I knew that if you wanted to print something out, but yeah, if you wanted to print the answer out, you needed to multiply the two variables. So you'd probably put that after the actual words in
Mm-hmm.
the text.
Got it.
Yeah,
And do you see how that kind of logical flow is different from the syntax, the detailed how you actually write the Python?
yes.
And one reason I like that distinction is, have you learned any other computer languages at all, or so far just Python?
I'm actually learning JavaScript currently, as well as Python.
Cool. Where are you learning
And
JavaScript?
it's this thing that I'm using for my homeschool. It's called the League of Amazing Programmers.
Got it.
Um, so-
Yeah, the case I would make is although JavaScript syntax is different from Python syntax, the idea of logical flow is common in both directions. Would you agree?
I think so. Yes,
I mean, I think, do you play chess at all?
I do play chess.
Do you like chess?
I do.
Are you good at
It's very,
chess?
um, depending on what you call good. I know I've won some, lost some.
Hmm. Who do you
Like it's
usually play against?
I usually play against my dad or my brother. Sometimes if my friends come over or I'm at their house and they have chess, or maybe at school, I play with some of my friends.
Got it. Well, the reason I think of chess, I actually got a job. I got my first job as a software programmer, as a coder, because I was beating this guy in chess all the time. And so
Yeah.
he realized that I had a pretty good logical mind. And the reason I think it's similar is in chess, you have to think several steps in advance. If they move their queen there, then I'm going to move my pawn there, and then they'll move their bishop there. You know what I mean by thinking of logical steps?
Yes.
How many steps ahead would you say you're thinking in chess? Do you think one step ahead, or one move ahead, two moves ahead, three moves ahead?
Well, I would say that I'm not that advanced, so I would just think of the next move and
Hmm.
not two moves in advance.
Do you see why it might be helpful to think two moves in advance?
Yes, I do see.
Yeah, I would say that, and I would say if you're thinking two moves in advance, it's a bunch of if-then statements. If they move the queen there, then if I move my pawn there, then they'll have to move the bishop there. You know what I mean? It's a bunch of if-then statements. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I see code is very similar, or the logical structure of code. If I want to multiply these two numbers and I want to put something out, then I need to have, a little bit like what you said. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So I think a lot of becoming good at a lot of things is learning to think logically, to be able to hold those if-then statements in your brain. Do you think that, well, first, do you like thinking logically and holding those kind of if-then statements in your brain?
I do. Yes.
Okay. Can you think of any other examples other than chess and coding where you hold if-then statements in your brain?
Well, I guess I could think of jujitsu actually. Like if they move like this or put their hand here, then I have this move open to me, or I
Mhm.
can get I don't know, a submission.
Absolutely. Because I don't know jujitsu, I know that in chess, you can think multiple moves in advance. Um, but in jujitsu, can you think multiple moves in advance, or is it so unpredictable after a certain point you can't predict much in advance anymore?
I think that it could be possible because if you know that you have them stuck and you know exactly what they have to do,
Mhm.
I guess in that case you could know a few steps ahead.
Actually, what that makes me think of is also in chess, if there are kind of or not an infinite, but if there are lots of different moves they can make, then it's harder. But when they have fewer moves, then it's actually easier to predict several moves in advance because your brain doesn't have to do as many calculations, basically. So what I'm hearing in jujitsu is sometimes there are places where their options are limited. So then you can actually think several moves in advance. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I would say in a lot of games, what other kind of games do you like to play?
Games like sports or just
Well, I was thinking
games.
of more board games, board game kind
Um,
of games.
there's checkers. I guess you could say that. I haven't actually played checkers in a long time. But there are some other board games that my parents and I like to play along with my brother. We had this game called Block Us, if you know
Uh-huh.
what that is.
I don't.
Oh, okay. It's this game where you have to try block the other people with your pieces.
Yep.
It's very fun.
So I don't know that one, but of course I know checkers. Would you say checkers also could be a series of logical statements, of if-then statements?
I think so.
In checkers, I know it's been a while since you played. Did you think just one move in advance, or did you think more than one move in advance?
Um, or me personally, or can other people do that?
Either.
Well, me personally, I honestly just went along with the game and I didn't really think ahead.
Got it.
Uh, I think it is possible to um think a few steps ahead. Like if they move here and I know they'll have to move there if you have them like cornered, then I can do this and so on.
Do you see why it might be a competitive advantage to learn to think several moves in advance?
I do see.
Yeah. Um, we froze. Are you back?
Yes, I think I am.
Okay, you are. Yeah, no, I think it's terrific. So because our connection is getting iffy, first, how is class? Is humanities class still going well?
It is. I love it.
Terrific. What did you read last week?
Uh, Last week, this week, we were finishing reading Taming the Bicycle. We finished that, and then we started talking more about James Turrell, the American artist.
Yeah. What is
Then sorry, go ahead.
what is Taming the Bicycle?
It's a novel, a short novel by Mark Twain.
Got it. And then you said there was one other thing after James Turrell you looked at?
We were looking at the painting Empire of Light by Reine Magritte, I think is how you say her name or his name.
Got it. Well, marvelous. I'm glad class is going well. I expected it was. But yeah, I'm gonna recommend some other games. Would you say you like board games in general?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very big on board games to help logical thinking, and I would encourage you to be aware when you're programming and also when you're playing games of increasingly long strings of logical thought. Actually, to give you one more piece, when I was in high school, I had a friend and we had a long bus ride, an hour and a half each direction, and we would play chess on the bus. But this was before magnetic chess sets, and sometimes the chess pieces would all fly away. So we would have to remember the chess pieces. And eventually we got to the point where we could play chess in our heads. Do you think you could play a game of chess in your head?
Not currently. I think I'd have to have a bit more practice.
There we go. But you both have to remember the pieces, but also then you can think, you kind of think logically about if this, then that. But I would encourage you to develop your ability to think in long sequences of logical steps. Um, and then bit by bit, it's a superpower. Make sense?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Have a wonderful week. We see you next week. Bye bye.
Right. Bye.